Welcome to Heart of Change podcast, where we explore heroic and inspiring stories of change. My guest today is Bo Le-Mentzel. Bo was born in a refugee camp in Thailand and raised in Berlin, Germany. Bo is an architect and known for the design of hearts for furniture. Through his designs, Bo has founded Tiny Foundation in 2019, providing creative housing for homeless and refugee. Bo is the author of The Little Professor, 34 Things My Son Taught Me About Life, Love, and the World. Bo challenges us to change our concept of home. I look forward to a great conversation with Bo, and I'm certain you will learn a lot from his perspective on living. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's great to finally meet you in person. I think you exemplify the less is more mentality and living from the heart space. So I'm excited to dive into the conversation today.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
We talked a lot on the phone. Now finally we meet in person.
Yes, yeah. It's just a lot better to sit down and get to know someone live.
That's true.
So Bo, what does the concept of home mean to you?
Well, I have different answers to that question. It depends on which glasses I put on. Okay, the perspective. As an architect, I would give a different answer. Like if I would answer it as a father or as an activist. So as an architect, I would say home is the place where you can be yourself. That's it. You know, because in life we play different roles. You know, when you go outside, go to work, then you be a co-worker. If you go to the school of your kids, you will be the father. If you join organizations or in your sports club, then you are like a teammate. And at home, you don't have to play any roles of these. You're free. That's the only spot to be free. And that's what home is, what I see as an architect. And if you ask me as a refugee, for example, I would say home is the only place where I can feel safe. You know, safe from being distracted, followed by people, organization, and where I can talk freely, where I can meet people freely. You know, of course, you can also meet people outside in the park or in a restaurant, but some immigrants or refugee, they don't feel very safe outside because they don't know, who sees you and who's watching you, who's listening to you. So home could be a safe spot, where you can breathe. So kind of like, the spot where you can be free. And home can also be a hideout, like, a place where you can hide if you don't want to be seen, because we as social beings, we are dependent on being seen in public, like with friends, being invited on a birthday party, be seen with teammates. We have to be seen. We cannot just hide away all the time. So a home can also be a spot where you can just take an off time of all these duties. Yeah. What do you see as home?
What do I see as home? All the things that you mentioned as well. Definitely, I see it as a place for me to relax and to remove the labels that society puts on you.
Yeah.
And also a way to recharge the batteries energetically as well. I'm a very social person, but I find myself introverted in many ways.
Yeah.
And I appreciate kind of piddling around the home, as we call it.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, if we talk about home, if everyone has the same idea of of home, because when you talk about home and when I talk about home, we have the concept of having a space where we freely decided to be there, right? It's not a home that someone gave us, or we're forced to be there because we couldn't afford something else. So but for most of the people in the world, the place where they sleep is not a place where they feel safe, where they feel like at home, you know. Most of the people on earth, they don't live with people they really like, you know. Can be the own partner, or maybe there are like parents in your home that of course you somehow like them, but maybe it's also very stressy, you know, to have parents in your home, or kids when they're adult or in puberty, or very, very small. So I would say most of the people, they don't like their home, you know. And when you look at a survey that IKEA makes every year, they ask a lot of people in like 50 countries about their feelings at home, and they always ask the same question. They have like, I don't know, 20, 30 questions, and one of these questions are, do you feel home at home, or do you prefer a spot outside your home which is more home, like your own home? It's a very weird question, but actually one third of the participants, they say that they actually feel not at home when they're at home, so they prefer to be outside. It's 1/3. Imagine, 1/3 of people in the world, they prefer to be in the car, to be in their office, to be at their friend's place, be in the fitness studio. They don't like to be at home. And it's very interesting because they also say that they prefer not to bath at home. So they take a shower at the fitness studio or somewhere else, or they travel a lot, so they're not at home very often. So, and that's interesting, because if 1/3 doesn't like to be at home, the question to me as an architect would be, why should home be so big? You know, if they're rarely at home, a bathroom, for example, should it be that big if you rarely use them? Or maybe someone else can use it while you're not at home. Sharing concepts could be interesting, you know.
I'm curious how your upbringing evolved you or made you into the architect you are today. You were born in a refugee camp. Is that correct?
Well, I was born in Thailand, which is not my origin. My parents, they come from Laos and from China, but they grew up in Laos. And when they flew from Laos, they had to make a stop in Thailand in a refugee camp, and that's where I was born. I don't think that I was, you know, born in the camp, but I was born during that time. Yeah, I have to ask my father, actually. My mother doesn't live anymore, but I have to ask my father if I was born in hospital or in the camp. But it was a very turbulent time, because everyone knew that we cannot stay there. It was like, you know, a transition zone, a transitional time. So I was born in a very transitional period. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you think, even though you were so young, that affected you on some level, the energy of it?
Well, fortunately not, because I know from you know, conversation with my parents and the generation of my parents, like my uncle and aunties and so on, they are all traumatized. You know, everyone, I would say everyone who remembers the trip from their home country, can be like Asia, can be I don't know, Africa or Mexico. If you remember how which efforts you had to take, you know, to get into the free world, then you you are traumatized. You need to talk to a professional person, actually. And I can see it, my father and my uncles and aunties, they all had these I don't know how to explain it, but there was something that was not normal, you know. They worked a lot, for example, so hard. They worked so hard, and they had very weird concepts of what quality of life is. They worked a lot, never had or never, spent money on going out, having time with the kids, having a nice holiday. But they spent the money on having a big car, for example, or a big TV. That was the status that we needed, to see the fruits of our efforts. And to me as a kid, because I don't remember the trip, the refugee efforts. So to me, it was always weird, see how we furnished our home, and we had these fake wallpaper. We had a wallpaper in our very small home in Wedding. Wedding is like like the Harlem of Berlin, and it showed like a fake wooden wall. So for my parents, a wooden wall probably was a kind of like status. So they had this fake wooden optics on the wall, and a marble table. Yeah. Very weird home. Yeah.
That's interesting. I can relate a little bit, as my parents had me very late in life, and my mother comes from a Greek immigrant background. So it was I'm American, and it comes from that American dream type of mentality where my parents worked very hard and they made, their money through this capitalist mindset. And my mom wanted all the milestones, including the car, etc., and the labels. And that was just the generation that they were from. So in some ways, the children, I think, are protected. We don't have the trauma, or we don't have the same experience maybe as our parents. But on the other hand, you are raised from those parents. So some of that does affect you.
Yeah, of course.
On a core level.
And it's interesting because if you look nowadays into homes, then they have pictures here, and they have a sideboard, and they have lamps and everything, and the design of the chairs. If you look nowadays into homes of people, you will see, okay, this setting could fit a certain Pinterest channel. It refers to something. It's something that I've already seen. It's a common look that people can relate to. It's a very modern, stylish, bright, maybe Nordic, a little bit Nordic, Scandinavian style. And it's interesting because back then, before there was no Pinterest, before there was no Instagram, and before there were no IKEA catalogs, how could people imagine their home if they don't have the images, how a wall should look like, how a picture should look like, or how a sideboard should look like, or a table. And I would say that homes today, they are more cozy if you compare it to back then, before we had these images. Now they're more cozy because now we know, okay, if we combine this table with that panel light and that chair and a certain carpet, then it will look like, it will look good. But at the same time, I would say that we live in homes that we haven't designed. It's just a copy. It's just a copy of a concept of someone else, and mostly of marketers, of advertisers, and also some interior designers who want to sell this chair and this lamp, and it's a capitalistic image actually we are in. So, and the question is, if we really uses this chair, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the chair uses us, to sell more chairs. So now we're sitting here, there are cameras, they see this chair, and maybe probably outside, there will be people who see, oh, well, nice interior, nice chair, let's look up and buy them. So who serves who, the home is for who? Does it really serve us, human beings, or does we actually are the salesman of our homes?
I wonder if even it does something to our creativity as a human being to start dreaming and to come up with our own concepts and to really listen to what we need in the now when we're constantly gaining our inspiration from external resources versus internal resources.
Yeah. But what is the true, the true self? We talked about home, that it's the space where you can be yourself, right? But if you don't live with the surroundings that really is you, so who is you is the question. And what do you need actually to have a talk? Do we need these tables to have a talk? Or would it be more like yourself if we just walk, for example, or stand in the kitchen, have a talk, or sit on the ground? So there are different concepts of having a talk. And mostly in Europe, it's very common. We sit on 2 chairs, Maybe we sit on 2 high stools, like on a bar. But in Europe, I would say very, very seldom, rare, we sit on the floor or we walk, and or we lay down. We could also lay down, and having head to head, and then just don't have to watch into your eyes, but watch in the sky and having a talk. That could also be a scenario. And
we should do that on our next
next
podcast.
time.
We'll just lie head to head.
It's super interesting, to see other cultures, because they are not yet infected by Instagram and IKEA and Vitra and all these opinion leaders. And when you see how they meet, how they talk, how they cook, it's so different from the way how we cook or how we talk, how we sleep, and how we how we live.
It's very interesting you bring this up, because I have been talking about this with other people, but in different context, about how you spend half of your life living a certain way, and then you reach a point, sort of, I think midlife for many people, where you start removing things and trying to get back to the core, back to the heart of who you really are. So it's unlearning certain types of ways that we've been influenced.
Yeah. It's not so easy to unlearn the things, because it's very comfortable to have these things around you, right? But it's right. We have to be aware that maybe the things that we have at home are not really the things that we need. And sometimes we have to, be critical and to also be resistant. Do I really need that new blender to make smoothies? Do I really need that super new fridge, or this new Aero Sarinen table, or this new lamp from Denmark? Do I really need this? Or do I want to post it on Instagram to present myself? What's actually what I need? Do I need a table, or do I need friends? And sometimes people mix it up, and they think that if they have a good, nice home, then they have friends, or have the absolution from their parents or so.
Right. There's so many different types of individuals out there that have different needs, different wants, different concepts. So it's really hard to have a one size fits all on that. But I think that when we look at the type of movement that I see happening right now, for instance, I've given up all my material things, but I sort of live in other people's homes, which gives me sort of a sense of minimalism, even though I'm not living in a minimalist home at this time. And I have a friend who is also living off the grid in a trailer right now, and got rid of his home and wants to be in nature and outside of the home more. And I think, again, this comes to trying to peel back those layers in however that speaks to you, to get back to the heart and find some authenticity in what you really believe in who you are. And that journey can be very different for different people.
Yeah. You mentioned minimalism, or like, less is more. What does it mean to you, minimalism? Or do you think that this is something that we should do more, living more minimalist?
saying what people should do is a sensitive subject because I think everyone is on their own journey in life. And I have been so many different people in different phases, and it's a journey. You have to figure out what that is for you. For me, it was mobility, living in a way that I can go experience other cultures with ease and not be so tied to whether my home is big or small, or designed this way or that way, that it's more about the fluidity of me being able to move to different geographies. So that's my minimalism for Holly's personal journey, and that could change and evolve with time. But everybody else's concept, again, of minimalism and home, it's such a multi-dimensional subject.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you get into architecture?
Well, that was a coincidence because when I grew up, I never had a plan what to do. I was very, very focused on the present. So as a teenager, I was doing music a lot. I was very into the hip hop culture, and I was a rapper, MC, and my friends, they were DJs and b-boys, breakdancing and so on. So this was my world. This was my home, actually. And that was the time where I haven't spent that much time at home. My parents, they also were divorcing at that time, so I didn't feel very comfortable at home. So I was looking out for like a different family outside of my home, and I found it in the hip hop communities. It's not a very good alternative to a real family, because this hip hop community back then in the 80s can also be a dangerous family, because there was a lot of drugs were not a big thing back then, but it started having joints, and we were 13, 14, right? But doing graffiti means you need spray cans, and we all couldn't afford it, so we had to steal them. We call it wrecking. Wrecking cans means stealing cans. And as a community back then, everyone knew where the perfect wreck spots were. That means the home improvement stores and the shops where you can easily steal cans. And we all had our methods how to do it without a bag. We just put 2 cans here in the belt and just walk out and come in with the next 2 belts. And so this is a criminal move, right? So I grew up with a lot of criminal minded people back then, and also some crazy people who wanted to do subway U-Bahn surfing, standing outside during while the train is driving. And some died, actually, also. I know some of them, they died from metro surfing, subway surfing. So that was my family, being outside in the yard, in the tunnel, in the dark tunnel in the night, and spraying on subway trains. That was my home. And I learned a lot from that time, really a lot, about friendship, about who you can trust, about identity. Actually, I learned a lot, who I want to be, who I don't want to be, and what is possible, what is not possible, in my what I can reach out, and what I can do, my abilities.
I noticed that you were called Prime Lee.
Yeah, that was that name came from that time, because that was my writer's name. My graffiti name was Prime. Yeah.
Your graffiti name.
Yeah, that was my graffiti. Still today, a lot of people call me Prime. Sometimes I walk in the street. Recently, I was waiting for a bus at the bus stop, and then a guy looked at me and said, "Hey, I know you." And I thought maybe he knows me from the Hartz IV furniture, because it became quite popular in Germany. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of press release because of these design furniture, and I thought maybe he knew me from that thing, from the design part. But he said, "No, I know you from from way back 20 years ago, because we used to hang out at the same writers' corners. There are always like, spots, subway stations where graffiti writers hang out. And you are prime, right? And said, oh, yeah. Yeah. So,
oh my gosh,
graffiti community still is alive.
it sounds like doing this graffiti and being involved with art it was sort of the birthplace of this design mind.
Yes, indeed, because graffiti is illegal. It's not allowed to do graffiti. So you have to deal with the concept of what are the rules of society, and are you fine with breaking the rules? This is a decision that you had to make as a 14-year-old person. What are the rules that I think I should follow, and what are the rules that I think I should not follow? It's a very huge decision. Like stealing. Is stealing okay? I would say yes, if it's just spray cans. If stealing money from your friends, okay, I would say no, because this is just awkward. So, the social compass. Do you say compass? Yeah. I developed my social compass at that time. What is right, what is wrong, what is the world I want to live in. And for me, shaping the environment, shaping gray walls, there was nothing wrong about it, because Berlin back then, it was a very great town, actually. Nowadays, everything is fancy and so on, but we had this wall, Berlin Wall. So it's obvious that, of course, a lot of Berlin youngsters wanted to design the environment and to tear down that wall by spraying at it or, shaping walls. And for example, drugs, for me personally, was the wrong choice. I know that graffiti can also be like a kind of drug, because stealing spray cans after school directly to the rec spots, and we had like list with like 5 spots where we can steal spray cans, and it was like an addiction, actually. Every day going out, stealing cans, collecting cans, showing to your friends, look, I already have 20 cans. Wow, I only have 7. You need 7 to make a nice picture. 5 to 7 spray cans, but I had 20. Wow. And my friends who had like 50 spray cans, they were like, we call them the kings, because they had a depot of spray cans, and of course they all stole them. Yeah. And it was like a game, like a challenge to have more than your friends, and have more like pieces sprayed outside than your friends, having more trained pieces.
Do you think that you channeled that artistic, while it was not in a healthy manner, you channeled sort of that artistic ability into your architecture, into going into architecture?
Yes, somehow. I mean, as an architect nowadays, I create walls, right? I create buildings, and they have walls. And of course, if you have nicely designed a facade where you have an idea how the window should look like in the wall and everything, and the material and the colors of a wall and the house and the roof and so on, and then someone comes and sprays at it, of course you get angry because he destroys your artwork, right? But then I have to remember, well, this person who just destroyed your artwork, you yourself used to be one of them back then when you were a child. So I cannot be that mad very long, because it's like karma. It's a karma thing. And what graffiti taught me is that we should not design things too perfectly. I know there are some designers who say if you design like chairs or lamps or whatever, or houses, they should be like perfectly shaped, and you have to rethink it over and over again and make the 20th version of it, and 21st version and 22nd version of it, and always shaping it and making it a diamond, so it shines very like brilliantly and perfectly. And I don't have that meaning. I think home or spaces should be there, but they should not be perfect, because once a hotel room or a living room or just a room is perfectly shaped, furniture are perfectly set, lamps are perfectly installed, then as a user, you are only a consumer. You will consume the room. And what I need are not rooms that I can consume like a product. I need rooms that give me space. And that means also to see things that I don't like and having the need to repair it or to change it. The need to change things, that's so crucial in a home. If everything is already perfect, the shelves are all, in the perfect shape, and what will you do in this environment? You can do nothing. You can just consume the shelf and consume the chair and consume the table, but you will not use them, and they will not be useful. You will just fit a certain image, of perfectness, and I would say that's the opposite of home. If you don't feel free anymore, if you just feel like you have to fit into a certain image.
Right. It takes away the feeling of your home being organic.
Exactly.
And that life is organic,
Yeah.
and we are organic, and we are imperfect.
Yeah.
So why should a home be perfect as well?
Yeah, that's why I liked my uncle so much. I rest in peace, my uncle Long. He that was one of the weird things that he had. He remembers the trip right from Laos to Germany, and he changed his home every week. When I visited him, he was like 12 years older than me, or 15 years older. He also already had kids. I was a youngster and he already had kids. And when I visited him, was in his home, then the sofa last week was over there, and then now it's here. And not just the sofa, but also like big things like a big cupboard, last week was here and now it's standing there, and he changed his furniture all the time, and it was so fun to see it. And we're making fun of it, because okay, let's see Uncle Long, and let's see where the bathroom now is because he changed all the time. And I think it's a good thing, from time to time to change things, because it also changes your perspective, how you see the world. Because I sit here now, I can see the world as it is, but once the chair is on that side, then I probably will see something different, and maybe it also does something with my mind and with my perspective on things.
I sort of feel this way about location.
Yeah.
I like experience. I change myself when I change where I live in the world.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that means that you have the mindset of an explorer. You're curious. You want to know, what's behind that mountain, what's behind that wall, what's behind that rule. And that's interesting that you explore, and you need change. Yeah.
Need change. We all do, I think, on some level, however that manifests, that it's good to keep actively being creative and sort of changing what our concepts are.
Well, the secret about change is very simple, actually. Obama, he had this slogan, this claim, change and hope. So that slogan helped him to win the presidency, right? And change is something that change management, for example, in marketing is a buzzword, something big. But the thing is very simple. If you want the change, it's really good. If you decide to have the change, then it's good. If someone else decides for you to have a change, then it's really bad. So change is good if you decide on your own to have it. Yeah. And it's not so easy to synchronize, the mindsets of so many people in the society to have to the situation that they really want change at the same time. Yeah, it's
Right.
almost impossible. That's why we always have fights in society.
For sure. Your son had a big influence on you and changed you a lot as a man. And we talked about your book, The Little Professor.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand a little bit? There were some key chapters in there that
Yeah.
were very interesting to me, including the one about the heart, and that the heart keeps track
Yeah.
of memories.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to touch base or expand a little bit on how that book changed you.
Yes, it's actually, I do a lot of projects. I'm a project addict. I love doing projects. And the book The Little Professor is probably one of the most important projects I did in my life, because it's actually like a, like my last will, actually, because I want to, if there's something, if I can leave something to the world, then it will be this book to my son. He's 10 now, so he could read it. He now knows how to read, but I will give it to him when he's, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30, when he also has his own son or a daughter, when he starts a family. And that's my last will for him, to read this book. And it's very personal. And it describes the 34 lessons that I've taken and learned from him. And it already starts before he was born. The day when my wife, Louise, told me that she was pregnant, I had my very first lesson. Before he was born, before I knew him, before we knew his name, I already had the very first lesson. The very first of the 34 lesson was that love comes always with being concerned and being in worry. You cannot just love and be like, be totally relaxed. Love, and in German we have this word Fürsorge. Fürsorge are two words. Für is like for something, and Sorge means you can say it's like caring, Sorge, caring, but it also means like being concerned. So it's not a positive word. Caring is a positive word, right? But being worried is not positive. So Sorge means being worried, and Fürsorge means to care for someone. So in the German word for caring for someone, there's the word being worried inside. And that's what I learned from the very first moment that I knew I will be a father. My life from this day on now will be conducted with being worried. And I cannot get rid of it. And there are a lot of fathers and also mothers who cannot deal with that, with that feeling consistently to being worried, to be, is he fine, is he good, is everything okay, does he, when he walks over a street, is there a car accident, maybe, is he involved, will he drown down when he's with his friends in a swimming, going for swimming. So constantly being in worry, that was the very first lection, and I had 34 of them about life. Yeah,
it's a really great book, and I could see a lot of how you've implemented some of these ideas from the book into your tiny foundation.
Yeah,
and how you kind of implemented the designs. Can you explain that, like how that book then changed you and developed how you view your work at the Tiny Foundation?
There are some lections in the book that has to do with spatial thoughts and spatial challenges. And one challenge was the size of our home, actually. My wife and I, we moved together into a 2-room apartment. So it was perfect for 2 people. 2 rooms plus a kitchen. So, of course, when we found out we would be gonna be parents, we're gonna raise a family, the next question would be, will we move out and find something new? And that was the very first big fight that my wife and I had. Because I didn't want to move out. I was convinced that we can deal with it. We can be happy in a 2-room apartment, even if we're 3 people. I believe that this would be possible with creative ideas, with putting the furniture in a certain way, or maybe creating a new wall or something, or bunk beds and these ideas. But my wife, she said that now we are family, we have to live in a different way, And I'm very happy that my wife didn't say that we have to move to the suburbia, because I know that this, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, that this means really the stagnation of everything. If you move into the suburbs, everything stops, friendships, work, everything, health, care. I mean, if you're healthy, everything is fine. But once you have problems with your dents, there's no dentist around. So what do you do? But we had a lot of fights, and I learned a lot about making compromises. That you cannot do everything the way you want to do it when you raise a family. You have to, you have to make compromise. You have to meet half the way in the middle. So this is very hard, to not just live the way you are convinced it's perfect, it's good, it's the right way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, because there are neighborhoods in suburbia America where the houses are exactly the same. Exactly the same. And at one point I was dating this man, and we were sitting in his home, and I looked out the window and I just saw row after row after row. The way the window was positioned, you could see each house sort of stacked upon the other. And I thought, wow, where is the individualism in this? There's something lost about this way of living. And it sounds like you had a lot of these concerns and thoughts come up when you were contemplating moving, but you decided to stay in your home. And
well, we are looking for a big apartment now, because it's not just one kid. Now we have 3 kids. So we still live in that 2-room apartment. And we're looking for something bigger.
You started the Tiny Foundation in 2019.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the Tiny Foundation and why you started that.
The Tiny Foundation is actually a think tank. I mean, it's not like a big company or so. It's just a network of good people, of architects, of artists, of philosophers, craftsmen, and teachers, and people who want to improve society, like the situation for the poorest, let's say the poorest, like homeless people, or also refugees, and also young people, teenagers. We want to do something, and we know that a lot of homeless people, they don't feel very welcome, in society. And even when I, as an architect or a city planner, create plans, we don't really want homeless people to be part of that city, normally. I mean, I always try to plan them, to integrate them into the concept. But if you look at other city planners, they don't think that homeless people should like sleep in the bus stop or on park benches or on playgrounds. They don't think that this is right, that they sleep there. But where should they sleep, if not there? So we see it more like in a holistic way and welcome everyone in society. And I know that it can also be good for a neighborhood if you also have like different and diverse kind of people in the neighborhood. Talking about sex workers, I know that a lot of people say, no, we don't want any sex workers in our street. But there are very good examples in Berlin and also in Rotterdam and Amsterdam and other cities where you see this, it can work together, because they have to be somewhere, We cannot say, no, please go away, or stand at the highway or so. It's super dangerous at the highway. No, please be part of the society, because you are part of the society. There are people who want to have your services, so they're also part of the society. Why should we just, put you away? The same thing with drug dealers. I know what I now say is not what people want to hear, but also drug dealers, they need a place to be because they have clients. And once, as long as there are clients and consumers of drugs, they need the drug dealers. And where should they be? It's better to have them around than to have them in a dark room or in dark space in the internet or somewhere else, where you don't see them. Of course, it needs to be like in a good mix. It's not good to have the whole street just with homeless people like in Los Angeles. There's if you look in Los Angeles or San Francisco under the bridges, wow, that is really overwhelming.
Yes, I lived in Southern California in San Diego for
You've
several
seen that,
years,
right?
and and also because the weather is so good.
Yeah.
So a lot of homeless people come directly to San Diego. It's the perfect weather year round, and often there were homeless persons sleeping in next to my front door.
Yeah.
When I lived there. So, and you just get used to it. It's part of the ecosystem. And most of the time,
it's not easy actually to be that tolerant. Yeah.
Right. Well, there's such a large community there that you have to be tolerant.
Well, just
it's not in the dark. It's very much right in front of you.
Yeah, I know that situation, and I think that Berlin is now like also developing in the same way, because we have a massive drug problem here, especially with crack in Berlin. It's quite new here, the crack phenomena in Berlin, and it's very cheap, and you get addicted very fast, and you will see it in the face, when someone is crack addicted, and I don't want people to be crack addicted. I don't think that this is the right thing. But we have to, we have to design societies and cities and streets and houses where we see the possibility that it's there. We cannot just hide it. It's there. So how do we deal with it? And it's not so easy. I don't have the solution for that or the answers. It's a test. It's an everyday test. Like last night, I sleep in the kitchen. We have, we have 2 rooms plus a kitchen. So I created a bunk bed into the kitchen to have my own space. And it's next to the entrance hall because we live in the first floor. Yeah. And I can hear very clearly if someone kicks the door to get in. And we have a lot of young people, teenagers, because of fun reasons, but also drug addicts who kicks the door and then it opens. It's just, you just need to kick it very hard. And last night, boom, 1:00 in the night, and someone just entered our house, and will he smoke inside or not? Because I can smell it, if the smoke comes under the door into our apartment. What do? Do you go out now and tell him to leave? Do you call the police? Do you shout at him? What do you do? And that's the everyday test that people have to examine and to proceed. And most of the people, and that's what I'm very proud of, most of the people do not decide to call the police. They say, hey, calm down, don't smoke here. You can stay here, but leave the place clean when you leave, and don't steal anything. Otherwise, you will be in trouble, okay? So that's probably the reaction of most of the people. And this is a sign of tolerance. If you accept homeless people in your own hallway, I mean, not in my home, but in the hallway. And I know it from other areas, like in Munich or Bavaria, in Bavarian areas or in suburban areas. They won't have that mindset. They will immediately call the police. So if you see homeless people in certain areas in the cities, then you can be sure that the people around them are probably very tolerant. And that makes me very happy to see, okay, there are people who still, want to help in that way. Yeah, it's a kind of like helping if you don't call the police.
Your designs, which are the Hearts for designs, they're used at the Tiny Foundation, right? To build the homes and to build you have a pickup home as well.
Yeah, the Hartz IV furniture is just it's a website and a book with blueprints of chairs, tables, and everything you need to make yourself a home. The blueprints are very simple. That you can make a chair like with 24 euros with stuff you find in the home improvement store. A wooden board in some screws and the Berlin stool, for example, you can just make it with 20 euros, and in 20 minutes it's very easy. And they have a very nice design. They're all designed by design classics from the Bauhaus, so people love it because it doesn't look cheap, but it's very cheap. So this is Hartz IV. Hartz IV is the name of our welfare system. That's why I call it Hartz IV. It's a welfare system furniture series, do-it-yourself project. And the pickup home is a tiny house that I've created. It's a very small tiny house. It's just 2.5 square meters. It's really small. It's as small as a sofa, maybe. We've put it on the pickup truck. The smallest pickup truck we found was a Piaggio Porta, which is an Italian model. Very, very small, very narrow. And it's important to have that very small truck because we have to find a free parking lot every night. We park it there. We don't have a permission because there's no permission to host homeless people in Germany. We park it there. We have this house, this little cabin on top of that truck, and we have a small sign outside which says Not Hotel, which means it's an hotel room for people in need. Not means being in need, emergency hotel. And then people, they can ring. There's a small ring. It's connected with my smartphone with a camera. They can ring, and then I explain to them, they can check in and sleep there. There's a heater. It's very important to have a heater in Berlin because it gets very cold during the winter season. So they can stay a night, and then at the next morning they have to move out, check out and check in, like in a hotel room. So that's what we do with the pickup home. And it's in the middle of the street, and the most important thing is not the reaction of the homeless, because they love it, of course. It's for free, and they have a door, where they can, it's their home for the night because they can be for themselves. It's important to see the reactions of the neighbors. Will they accept it? Will they call the police? Will they say something? And what do you think? What is the reaction of the neighbors? Of course, they will see it, that this is not a normal car. There's something with this car.
Well, I think a lot of people are living in their cars these days anyways. There's a whole movement of people living in their Prius. So I think actually it would be nice. At least people it's very clear what it is, and it's probably nicer than a pickup that someone's living in the back of, which I've seen a lot of in Berlin and in California too. So that's a movement. That's great. And you also have the tiny homes. Are they on wheels as well? Yeah. Not the pickup, but the homes?
We have bigger tiny houses. They are installed on a trailer, on a trailer on wheels.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're bigger than just 2.5 square meters. They're like 10 or 15 square meters. So they have 2 rooms inside, very small, but 2 rooms and 2 floors often, like a bunk bed. On top of the bathroom, so they come with a bathroom and a kitchen and really like a small home.
How many different sizes of homes do you have?
Well, I love to create prototypes, so they are all like in a prototype status, and we all give them names. Every prototype has a name, like a car. A concept car always has a name, and the very first one I created was the so-called 100 euro apartment, and it has the size of like 9 square meters. It's a very popular tiny house because it has very high ceilings and very nice windows, shaped like an old Berlin bourgeois house. And the next tiny house is quite big. It's like 15 square meters and has a very large glass facade. It looks very fancy. It looks like a little bit like the Bauhaus building, the very famous iconic Bauhaus building in Dessau. So that's we call it Wonder Home. It's the Wonder Home. And we have the tiny temple, which looks like the Brandenburg Gate, which is inspired by temples, Greek temples. That's why we call it temple, tiny temple. And the new work studio, which has very glassy facade. So they are all very different because they all deals with different approaches to design.
And can they be parked anywhere, or are there tiny home communities?
Well, that's why I love tiny houses on wheels, because as a human being, for example, if I want to stay in the United States as a human being, it's almost impossible. You need a green visa, you need a visa, you need whatever. You need so much stuff to have like 10 square meters in the USA, in Manhattan, let's say Manhattan or Brooklyn or Los Angeles. It's very hard to get 10 square meters of home in the USA or in Switzerland or in Germany. But with a car, with a trailer, which is also 10 square meters, it's very easy. You just need a license plate, actually. You don't need a visa, you don't need a green card. You just need a license plate. And once you have a license plate, you can stand everywhere in the public sphere. Of course, it's not legally allowed to live inside of that cabin. But imagine, the room is there and you can put it everywhere in the world. You don't need a passport. You don't need a asylum. You just need a license plate. That's it. And then you have your 10 square meters in the best areas of the world. And that's what I find so intriguing about tiny houses. That's why we put them everywhere, and we also have made different experiments. For example, we parked 5 of them just on the public parking lot. It's not public, it's a private parking lot of IKEA. And we created a village there. Just, simply on the parking lot of IKEA. And IKEA found it so nice, they supported it. Because they have this area of this parking lot where they actually didn't use it. So they say, why not? So that's what I said, that I like to see the reaction of people and neighbors when they see, these tiny spaces in public. And often, not always, but often they support it.
Tell me, so why do you think less is more? The concept of less is more in terms of living?
Well, there's a big misunderstanding. I don't think that less is more. For example, if you talk about love, I wouldn't say that less love is better. Or less money is better, or less health is better. I would say less of the private space to get more of the community space. This is better. Imagine we would plan this floor here, right? I don't know, 200 square meters maybe. Okay, so we could decide to have more of the private rooms and less of the community spaces like the kitchen. Or we could say we make less of the private rooms, we make it a little bit smaller, because then we can make the kitchen area, which is the community room, we can make the kitchen bigger. So I'm a big fan of making community spaces bigger. But to make it bigger, we need to make the private and individual spaces smaller. So with less, I mean the individual space. That's why I'm not a big fan of having these, suburban concepts where the individual space is very, very big. And in cities, the individual space is very, very small, but you have a lot of the communal spaces, community space like libraries, schools, streets, squares, playgrounds, whatever. In suburbia, everyone has his own private playground in the back, of their lot. And I don't think that this is very social, because how do you make sure that children can meet if they always hang out in the back lot of your own house? They will not have any, contact with other kids from other areas or other houses if they're only in your own back lot. That's why I don't design balconies or big porches, because once you have a big porch and a big balcony, you hang out on your balcony. And once you hang out on your balcony, which is a private individual space, you will not hang out in the park. But hanging out in the park can be, sometimes, not always, but can be more social than hanging out on your balcony. You will not meet any person on your balcony by hanging only out on your balcony.
So it's almost feeding this loneliness epidemic that we have in the world today. Yeah. It's the way we live and having more space isn't necessarily a positive thing.
I think it's a myth, or maybe it's a story, a fairy tale of the advertising industry. That they say that once you get older, once you have a job, and once you have money, you always have to grow. Grow your environment. Moving into the next apartment needs to be bigger, of course, than the present one. And after that apartment, you need to move into a much bigger apartment. So the concept of capitalism to grow as the ultimo ratio is very, very connected and tied into the concept of home somehow. People won't say in Europe that it probably could also be a status to be in a very small apartment. My father now, he's a widow, and he wants to find a wife, right? And he says, I was told him that why don't you move into a one-room apartment? It's cheaper because he doesn't have that much money. He lives in a two-room apartment. It's not that expensive, but it would be cheaper to be in a one-room apartment. And he said it's a status thing because I will not find a wife. I will not find a woman if she sees an old man in a one-room apartment. You see? So the question of what is a good home is connected to a lot of questions. And most of the question has nothing to do with furniture or with home. It's actually a representation of your identity.
Right. Well, we're also close in age and have come from immigrant lineages.
Yeah.
So I think some of that's just the mentality
Totally.
of our upbringing as well. That's very interesting. And your furniture is very simple as well, although you said it has a lovely design. So people are enjoying this sort of modern look and the sleek design, but yet it's affordable. And it's a simple design. So I still see a lot of simplicity to your design and simplicity to some of the pictures you showed me as well with regard to your what you've created. And why do you think simplicity is important?
Well, in my opinion, every trend needs a contra trend, And what I've seen, like 10 years or 12 years ago, when I founded and invented the Hartz IV Möbel, I saw the hyper-consumism trend. That means Amazon came up, all the Lieferando and all these companies who brings you food at home came up, and a lot of startups they wanted to promise you can have everything you want for very low money, and Primark, Primark, the clothes store, they came up. You could buy a t-shirt for €2, or dress up a whole dress for like, I don't know, €20. That's nothing. And of course, this comes with a lot of exploitation, right? And this was the trend, or still is the trend, or is one of the trends that we see in European worlds. And I've seen this trend. I've also seen the trend in furniture that chairs are getting bigger and bigger. And if you look in a furniture catalog, they don't call it chairs anymore. They call it landscapes. They don't call it a 3-seat sofa. They call it a sofa landscape, because now that's the next scale. We want to shape landscapes, not just only a chair, but it should be like a mountain, mountain-like furniture piece. So everything's getting bigger. Kitchen. Homes, everything is getting bigger, and I know that this cannot be the solution. In this world where we have 7 billion people, soon 10 billion people, how can this be that everyone on Earth, all the 10 billion people, will wanting to have bigger kitchen every year, bigger sofas, landscapes at home, bigger apartments every year? Now I understood why people like Elon Musk and Richard Branson tried to escape the Earth and get into Mars, because they would be the first pioneers, to put their landscapes in the big apartments, because here it's getting tight. It's escapism, actually, and we should deal with our escapism fears that we have. It's not the right solution in most of the cases to move into a bigger apartment. Maybe it's better to look for a therapist
I feel like also, and I should have said this earlier, but I think home also is an intersection of where you feel the most at peace.
Yeah.
And you have the most gratitude and the most love.
Yeah.
Those moments when you feel those things all at once, wherever you are in your life, it's home.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think that we've gained a lot of wisdom just in how we consider the concept of home, and you've provided such insight on how we can change the way we view home and what our mindset is with the way we're living. So it's been such an honor to sit down with you today, and I appreciate you coming and being on my podcast.
You're very welcome.
If you liked the episode today with Bo Le-Mentzel, please be sure to like and subscribe. I really enjoyed talking with him today and learning more about how we can change the way we live.